Now that I've identified and defined shoulder mobility and stability, the purpose of this video is to discuss how these two components impact shoulder function throughout the pitching motion. In doing so, we're going to look at a study done by Sports Health. What they did was break down the pitching motion into 6 phases and collected kinetic data such as in-ranges and velocities from various muscles and joints throughout the body. This again shows that the pitching motion is a sequence of movements where kinetic energy is passed through a chain from the lower extremities to the torso up to the shoulder and elbow. Strength, mobility, and timing throughout the entire kinetic chain are crucial for a pitcher to have an efficient delivery. But for the purposes of this video, we will only focus on the glenohumeral joint. Specifically, we are going to look at the acceleration and deceleration phases of the pitching motion. The acceleration phase of the pitching motion takes the throwing shoulder from as much as 180 degrees of external rotation, which is shown on this picture on the left, to max internal rotation, the picture on the right. Now this happens in about 42 to 58 milliseconds. This equates to 7,000 to 7,500 degrees of internal rotation per second. This is one of the fastest limb movements of the entire sports realm. This tells us that the deceleration phase of the pitching motion is the most violent. That's because the posterior rotator cuff muscles, the infraspinatus and the teres minor, have to work extremely hard to dissipate these powerful acceleration forces. Now, what will happen if a pitcher is lacking sufficient internal rotation? Well, the posterior rotator cuff muscles are going to undergo even more strain to slow the shoulder down because they will have less time and space to do so. And that brings me to my next point about timing. Timing is very important. Even if the cuff muscles are strong as an ox, but they are not firing at the right time, then they will not be doing their job of stabilizing the humeral head. And if the humeral head is not stabilized, then there will be an impingement in the anterior aspect of the shoulder or damage to the labrum, because the acceleration forces will be pulling that humeral head into the front of the socket. The acceleration force also dissipates distally, meaning if the cuff muscles aren't dissipating these entire forces sufficiently, then it will travel down to the elbow, causing undue stress. We can see from this study that shoulder mobility and stability work hand in hand. If a pitcher lacks sufficient shoulder mobility, then the shoulder stabilizers are at risk of being strained, or they already have poor tissue quality, which is why the shoulder is tight in the first place. Also, if a shoulder has too much mobility, then the cuff muscles may not be able to effectively stabilize the shoulder joint, and there is a risk of injury as well. In the next video, we will look deeper into shoulder mobility and what normal total motion values look like in pitchers.